Good morning, guys. It is 9 o'clock in the morning, East Coast, USA. It's still dark in Juneau, Alaska. Welcome back. Hope you guys had a nice evening. I'm going to recap a little bit what we talked about yesterday, and then we'll get started. We're actually starting off with the capstone exercise for Module 2. Any questions or thoughts or anything I need to touch on before we get going today? You know I'm going to ask for a green thumbs up. We're still waiting for 4 more people to drift on in. So if you're ready to go, give me a green thumbs up. So a lot of you haven't initialized your microphone yet. Let's do is my favorite exercise of the day. Turn on your mic and say, "Good morning, Jim." And
Morning.
muted. Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we've got everybody initialized mostly. Matt, I can see that you're on your mobile phone this morning, but that'll still work.
I'm on my iPad this time, so hopefully this is working.
Yeah, well, you sound great. So,
App.
okay, I get a slightly different symbol for you that shows that you're on a mobile device. So I was thinking about this group yesterday, and we made some jokes about. My favorite joke is how you get to Carnegie Hall. But we talked a little bit about music, and I realized, we've got somebody who plays jazz piano or taking jazz piano lessons. We've got a gospel singer. I play the drums, and I failed to mention yesterday that Mark Fogelson, your coordinator today, is a bass player. So we've got we could create the Source Selection band if we were so inclined. I think getting together would be a little bit difficult since we're spread all the way from Juneau, Alaska to the East Coast.
Oh, that didn't stop people back in the day. Remember during the pandemic or even before, like around the world. Do we have a keyboardist? I think we do, don't we?
We do. We've got a jazz keyboard player.
We just need a solo guitarist.
We got everything covered.
My son plays guitar. He's done the School of Rock thing, and he's pretty good.
Sign him up. Make him part of the Source Selection band. Okay. Yesterday we started out talking about the FAA's their independence from FAR, their independence from their parent organization, the DOT, the necessity for that, their ability to make decisions and be flexible in their working with industry because they're dealing with cutting edge technology, innovation, but also in areas that impact public safety. We talked about the FAST website. That AMS policy is a requirement. AMS guidance is encouraged, should be followed, but it's not strictly a requirement. But it's all the forms and the templates and all the information that supports the use of the AMS policy. We talked about the roles in source selection, the key members. We talked about use of sometimes outside consultants. One thing I will say that's important is if you use outside evaluators, they may be used if the expertise is not available within the FAA, but they still have to comply with FAA's conflict of interest and non-disclosure and information policies. That, recall, is an important aspect. We talked about the 2 approaches, the 2 templates, A and B, one for complex non-commercial source selection, the other for commercial and simplified, and what they get used for. We said specifically that the steps involved in complex and non-commercial were important. That's planning, screening, selection, debriefing, and lessons learned. We talked about the restrictions on obtaining and disclosing information, that we are under the Procurement Integrity Act. Well, what I didn't mention that happens, that will probably come up, matter of fact, it will come up, is important, that I did not mention, is that the restrictions on obtaining and disclosing certain information are covered in Title 41 of U.S. Code, Chapter 21. Now, I don't know why the particular title and verse are important, but they are important. So you'll see that again. Title 41 USC Chapter 21. That's where the restrictions on obtaining and disclosing certain information during a procurement is codified into law. We talked a little bit about source selection planning, that FAA requires planning on all procurements that are above $25,000, that are not purchase card, that are not real estate. There were a couple of exceptions to that, but generally, even if you don't have a formal planning document, the FAA expects you to go through an adequate preparation and planning for any acquisition. We talked about with the illustration of Hurricane Irma, the importance of risk analysis and its impact on your procurement planning. A good risk analysis will help you identify the higher priority evaluation factors as you develop evaluation factors for your source selection. We talked about, we ended up yesterday talking about pre-solicitation information exchanges, the different types of information exchanges, and what would be used in which situation. The last breakout session, we had a little bit of an exercise on that. And now I think we're ready to move forward and talk about other considerations. So that's a quick 20,000 foot overview of what we covered yesterday. I'll speak briefly about early exchange considerations, which is the slide that's up right now. And then we're going to roll into the capstone exercise for Module 2. But you may disclose general information about agency needs and plans and future requirements at any time. Now, this is important to remember. The second bullet on this slide, the CO, the contracting officer, becomes the focal point of any exchange with potential offers after the release of the solicitation. You got that? I'll say it again. The CO becomes the focal point of any exchange with potential offers after the release of the solicitation. So you have to make all specific information needed for enable the vendors to prepare a proposal available to all offers to avoid any unfair competitive advantage. But it doesn't prevent, like we said, one-on-one communications. It's okay to speak about a particular offer and get clarification or understanding of their proposal, and you don't have to. Doesn't mean you have to meet with everybody. The Office of Federal Procurement Policy issued a couple memoranda in 2011 and 2012 that address early communication with vendors. They were termed myth busting. The title of the memos were myth busting, addressing misconceptions to improve communication with industry during the acquisition process. The 2011 memo addresses myths on the part of the government, one of which being if you talk to one vendor, you have to talk to them all. That's a myth. But there's a number of myths that are exposed in this memo. If you're really interested, there's a link in your student guide to both of these, to the website that has these memos. The second one, the 2012 memo, is myths on the part of the contractor in dealing with the government. So it might not be quite as relevant. So we've got our next breakout session coming up. This is all about making recommendations regarding your source selection plan. So I'm going to put you into your breakout groups. There are two scenarios that we're going to look at, and I'm going to assign groups 1 and 2 to scenario 1, and groups 3 and 4 to scenario 2. And after you read the scenario, there's just 3 quick questions, and I want you to put the answers into the breakout room notes section. I'm going to ask, what is the composition of the source selection team? So, who should you include as the source selection team, or source evaluation team, as we sometimes call it? Is the use of outside evaluators appropriate in this particular scenario? And which competitive procurement methodology would you choose? And Mark, is there something I'm missing here?
It's just that with Karen Evans not showing up yet, Group 1 only has 2 people in it currently.
Oh my God. Okay. So Group 1, pardon me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Group 1, are you okay with
because slide someone over, or just wish them the best?
Well, okay. We could either Group 1. I'll make it your option. Christian and Jessica, we could move somebody over, take a volunteer from one. All the other groups have 4 people, and you're down to just 2 people. We could loan somebody from one of the other groups if we take a volunteer, or if you prefer, you can just do this exercise with 2 people. What do you think,
Jim? I think we can work. I think myself and Jessica can work it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
You can.
All right.
Sounds good. I appreciate that. So I'm going to put you into your breakout rooms. This will be for 30 minutes. This exercise, this is going to practice some of the concepts and make some decisions involved with source selection. This is on page 82 of your participant guide page 82, but it's in the workbook on page 18. So you had your choice of which one you want to follow along. So read the scenario, answer the questions, assign somebody to answer or represent your group's answers with the rest of the group. The instructions say here to put you into your groups for 30 minutes. I think you can probably be done in 20 minutes. I'll go ahead and set a timer for 30 minutes. Do me this favor. When you are finished, could you go to the drop down caret next to the hand and give me a green thumbs up to let me know that you're done, in case it's an opportunity to bring you back early. Any questions before I start the breakout room?
Page 12.
Yeah, I've dropped the instructions into the breakout room exercise area, and I asked you to first delete the notes that you had from yesterday when you start this exercise. So I'm starting the breakout room now, and I'll see you in at most 30 minutes, hopefully a little bit earlier. Okay, welcome back. Back to the main room. We're going to talk with groups 1 and 2 first about scenario 1. Then we'll talk with groups 3 and 4 about scenario 2. You guys, both groups 1 and 2 have extensive notes. So why don't we start? We'll start with group 1. What is your composition of the source selection team that you put together for this IT project?
So we had the CO and legal. Those are like the main constants. Then we also had like some IT subject matter experts, the core, the program management team, and also we had the CIO, and maybe even having the CIO as like the source selection official. We thought that could possibly be an idea to use specifically. Seems like this is like the CIO's baby, and they kind of have
Yeah.
like that, information in terms of what's working with the contracts now and how they want to put them all together under one kind of umbrella. So we thought that the CIO would possibly be the SSO. So that's pretty much our source selection team.
Okay, that's logical. I can see that. A CIO is probably driving this whole thing. What about Group 2? You want to add somebody from Group 2? Want to add to the composition of the source selection team at all? Any other thoughts?
It looks like we had pretty similar composition. We kind of focused on the technical team, really keying in on SMEs for what they identified as very important factors for network availability and data protection areas. And, same as Group 1 talked about, kind of a core from one or more of the existing 5 contracts would be great to bring that knowledge of how the current contracts are operating and maybe lessons learned that could be applied. And then at the end there, they talked about, it's going to be difficult. This contractor is going to be responsible for running like a whole IT operation, right? Consolidating 5 contracts across the country. So maybe bringing in someone with experience running an IT operation.
I see the wisdom in that. That makes a lot of sense. Do you think Group 2 that you need an outside evaluator?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about that. And in my experience, having come from DoD, we tended to always have outside evaluators, just kind of the nature of the business. And I think here, reading this scenario, again, the fact that you're having someone, you're asking one contractor to provide, a network across the country, consolidating 5 contracts, it might be good to bring in an outside evaluator, perhaps, that's had experience in managing, such a large and complex requirement before. And so then, you see we paste in the notes from our class from yesterday about, hey, we do think we should use an outside evaluator, and here are the steps that we would need to follow.
Okay, yeah, very careful about information disclosure, and of course you have to get approval from all the vendors for them to be able to look at the proposer information. Okay, that makes sense. What about Group 1? You seem to pad your bet. If it's not available in house, then yes.
Yeah, I think with like any use of like outside evaluators or advisors, I think it's always dependent on what you have in house in terms of like having that that particular resource or expertise. But if you didn't have that and you had to go out, of course, I think having an outside evaluator would definitely help, because they might see something that people who you already have on the team might not see, or what have you, in terms of like looking for different type of solutions. So yes, if you don't have it in house, of course, having someone who is outside of the agency would be would be useful for for an evaluation.
Yeah, a good recommendation. Also, I find a lot of times the industry perspective is a little bit different than government perspective, and just having that different perspective makes you think broader about approaching the contract. So that's a good recommendation. What about the procurement methodology? This is Group 1. Which would you say complex, non-commercial? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it from our standpoint, it has to, you're dealing with protecting sensitive information. Not trying to have any type of cyber attacks, anything like that, to kind of expose that information. So that's one reason I would think would be complex or non-commercial. Another reason is you have 5 contracts right now. You're kind of bringing them all in under like one umbrella. So I think that would be, another reason why you'd have it, complex, non-commercial. And, and it's also, it's performance-based work statement. So you're kind of giving, you're giving the offers a kind of general idea of what you want, and then you're going to have them propose the best solution. So to me, that would to us, that wouldn't be anything that's like simplified or, you know, anything you can just buy commercial off the shelf. I think that's something you have to have specialized and not necessarily pay the least amount of money for. You won't be worried about paying, you know, above premium because you want to get the best value out of it. So yeah, we think that would be complex non-commercial. We kind of went into what type of contract you might want to have on it. Not necessarily sure if that was over the top, but we kind of thought about that as well, like going even further, like what type of contract you want to have to kind of capture, you know, the services and, you know, keeping the risk, you know, more on the vendor side, even though I think with this one with being a performance-based work statement, you might want to have some type of cost plus incentive fee type contracts or what have you, you know, to kind of give them incentive not to have, you know, X amount of cyber attacks or something to that effect. So we were just brainstorming about that as well.
Yeah, good idea. Add an incentive on the part of the vendor. Very well reasoned, Chris. I appreciate that. What about you, Nicole? Do you agree with what Chris said?
Group 2 has nothing to add. Chris said it all perfectly.
Chris.
Thank you, Nicole.
Exhaustive and comprehensive. Okay.
Yeah, we concur and adopt his findings as our
Okay, that's great. All right, let's move on to scenario 2 and talk with groups 3 and 4. This is a little bit different. They want some 500 remotely located weather cameras that are linked real time. Let's start with Frank Burns, group 3. Who would you put on the source evaluation team?
Definitely the CO, legal, IT, and that's broad spectrum IT. That's IT that's going to understand all the network requirements for 500 cameras just offshore and 1,000 miles offshore. Network engineers, meteorology, cybersecurity, oceanographer, and satellite communications we did forget safety. Should have safety, probably should have environmental too. So I forgot that because you're going to be dealing with the ocean. You don't want to set stuff up and mess up aquatic life.
Yeah.
Definitely have to outsource. We have no SMEs in this area. I don't believe the FAA has a Navy. So, we're going to have to outsource personnel. And since it's a matter of getting the offerer's system to match up with our system, we're taking a stab saying that it's simple commercial because it's like getting any program that's out there. So like a video program that we have at the tech center, as long as it matches up with our program and it works with Microsoft and it works with Outlook and every other program that we have in the system. So we're thinking it's a commercial off the shelf product that as long as square peg fits in a square hole, we should be good to go.
Okay. That all makes sense. Again, in scenarios like this, we don't have enough information to really have a whole picture. So you have to make some assumptions, but you're assuming that, and it does say it's a commercially available camera. So we're not looking at any kind of prototypes and no development. So that makes sense. What about group 4? Do you agree with what Billy had to say?
Well, a lot
Not
of it,
completely.
yes, but we did think it was complex and non-commercial because we have the integration issues and we're dealing with a consortium, if you will, of different technologies. And we also agree we do need to outsource outside consultants. When you mentioned the FAA doesn't have a Navy, but we do have the Aleutian chain, which is quite extensive. And so that's what I was thinking, that kind of coverage, 1,000 miles might be across the Aleutian chain or something like that. We had a list that reflects, I think, pretty much what people had. Definitely need to add cybersecurity, like Bo said. And instead of oceanographer, I would say oceanic. We do have oceanic domain and SMEs in that area. And I know within the FAA, I've been working a lot of different things for a while, but there's a tendency to address things from an ERAM approach or integration, and that does not work when it comes to oceanic and ATOS. They're quite unique. So there have been some misfires there. So definitely need oceanics means involved, as well as others perhaps. And then we have the
Interesting.
list here as you see it.
Yeah, and your logic makes sense. Depending upon how involved that whole integration effort is, it might push it into the complex non-commercial. It is something new. and unique.
The FAA,
Right, because we had. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
just want to add that if you look at where we have had some issues is with interface. Has actually driven, even Atlanta is listed on that list, or where we've been driven to ATC 0 because we had an interface that didn't work well. So that is a particular area. And like I think it was Nicole or the other group spokesperson said, we want a kind of tailored solution that's going to integrate with our systems. And that's a very touchy area. And we certainly don't like going to ATC 0. Over.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So again, depending on what you're running into, it sounds like integration might push it into complex and non-commercial, even though it's basically an off-the-shelf camera. But the application of this off-the-shelf camera is fairly demanding. So I would tend to agree with that. Very interesting.
Well,
any thoughts?
Final thought was because I hear my Spectrum folks and tech ops screaming in my ear that we definitely need to get someone from Spectrum because some of these systems that are commercial might be using different spectrum than what we're interested in. Given we want 3, 4, 5 nines, whatever, so that would have to be considered as well if we have the right kind of bandwidth and the right type of spectrum.
Well, everybody knows who Starlink is, correct?
Yes.
And what Starlink does. So I was part of the WeatherCam installation crew in Alaska and all the way to Hawaii, Panama, Philippines, Puerto Rico. So the thing that really caught my eye is the same thing as the personnel. We don't have the personnel for the integration that would make it complex and non-commercial.
That's interesting. Interesting. Again, you had a scenario yesterday where you guys had the advantage of insider information having worked in that area. It's fascinating that the camera scenario plays into your experience, your group's experience also.
Well, because we have flight service stations in Alaska. We closed down a bunch of them. So when you fly into Juneau or Cordova, they're flight service stations. So weather cams and all that are very, very. They're fortunate to have.
Interesting. Yeah, it's all still fairly new to me, but fascinated by the work of the FAA. All right, Brent, thank you. Sally, thank you. And good exercise. I appreciate the discussion. We've got almost straight up 10 o'clock Eastern, which is going on 6 a.m. I think in Juneau, Alaska.
You are correct.
Yeah. So let's take our first break. Give everybody a chance to grab their coffee, and I'm going to put you in the lobby and set a timer for 10 minutes, and I'll see you about 10. Thank you. Okay, guys, welcome back. Looks like I ran just a little bit OT. I apologize. Let's get into the next module on developing evaluation factors. I'll try to highlight the questions that come up on the exam that deal with evaluation factors as we go through this. We just finished the section on planning. Part of that planning involves information exchanges with industry. I will mention a couple things that are important. That the category of screening information request that is used to seek information for vendors that meet the FAA's minimum capabilities requirements for efficiency is called qualification information. It's a screening information request that you categorize as qualification information. And again, that's just to develop a qualified list of vendors. The type of pre-solicitation exchange that should be used to develop and identify potential sources is then referred to as a screening information request, or SIR. And most of you already know that, but I did want to mention that and also mention that it is important. So if we're back and ready to roll, why don't you give me a green thumbs up? Everybody's got their coffee.
Get my coffee.
Got your coffee ready to go. There you go. Billy gets the fast green thumb award for being up before I even asked for it. Oh. Good. Okay. So evaluation factors and sub-factors and their relative importance, it's all part of the source selection plan. I think the evaluation factors that you come up with, it might be the most important aspect of coming up with, or the most important job of the source selection team. It's also sometimes the most difficult. This module is going to discuss how to develop evaluation factors and standards that are going to be used for source selection and sort of the general policies and guidelines for developing evaluation factors and sub-factors. So the objectives are to understand guidelines for developing evaluation factors and developing non-cost, non-price evaluation factors. So the first lesson deals specifically with guidelines for developing evaluation factors. So after this lesson, you'll understand sort of the general guidelines. FAA uses factors, of course, to evaluate an offer and to assess which offer will provide the best the solution that best meets the government's requirements. When an individual factor is too broad, you might break it down into sub-factors. AMS actually allows to even break sub-factors down further, like it's indicated on the slide here, into specific elements that provide more separate points of rating to discriminate between offerers. Factors and sub-factors should be limited to those elements that distinguish among the offers. Right? In other words, if some element or some factor is not going to drive the decision and it's not going to differentiate from one offer to another, then it shouldn't even be included. It shouldn't be part of the evaluation factors because it's not driving your decision process. Cost or price considerations must be an evaluation factor in all selection decisions. Now that's important. And again, just to emphasize, make sure nobody misunderstands. When an instructor says that it's important, that means it's actually on your final. So cost or price considerations must be an evaluation factor for all selection decisions. Other common evaluation factors for the FAA include technical approach, past performance, small business participation, and of course, other factors as needed. Brad, did you have your hand up? I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, sorry. It took my microphone a bit to unmute.
Okay.
You were talking about at the beginning, not required. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what was not required?
What did I say was not required?
You said it shouldn't even be in there.
Oh, okay, I see. An evaluation factor that's not going to differentiate from one vendor to another. For instance,
okay.
Yeah, if you're only considering, if your short list, let's say, or your qualified vendor list for something that's going into Atlanta is just vendors in the metropolitan Atlanta area, then evaluation factor should not be location or distance from the FAA facility, because everybody on the qualified vendor list is within the region, as an example. Okay. If it's not going to support your decision-making process, in other words, not differentiate from one vendor to another, don't even include it. Don't even ask for it.
Makes sense. At the beginning of that, for some reason, your audio wasn't coming through, so I missed it, and I wanted to make sure I understood. So thank you for covering that.
Two things, Brad. Number one, audio drops out sometimes, and number two, I do have that's maybe one of my superpowers. I do have the capacity to confuse people sometimes when I try to explain things. So I appreciate any question. So AMS guidance on evaluation plans requires that you develop an evaluation plan. If you're really curious, section T3.2.2.1.3 talks about evaluation plans. It outlines, of course, the people, the schedule, the process, the criteria, evaluation information, and the basis that you're going to use for selecting offer or award. The plans, of course, vary based on the project, the complexity of the procurement, but at a minimum, you need to name the source selection official, the source evaluation team members, the evaluation factors, the relative importance of those evaluation factors, and the standards that you're going to use for rating offers against the evaluation factors. Offers need to know how they're going to be rated and evaluated, so they can tailor their response in a way that I guess most highlights their capabilities to meet our decision criteria. And it is we also want to let them know what the basis is for making the decision and making an award. So again, EMS guidance includes FAA's best interest for making an award to the best value offer, and award to the LPTA, the lowest price technically acceptable offer. Evaluation factors should have three basic qualities. They should be variable. That means have to have a reasonable expectation of variance among the offers, that you have a variety, a range of responses for a given evaluation criteria. It has to be measurable. You have to be able to establish using the standards how a particular vendor measures up to a given evaluation factor. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be quantitative. It doesn't mean it has to be a numerical measurement. It can be qualitative. Good, bad, great, moderate, whatever. And it has to be determinate. That means it has to answer the question: is the government willing to pay more for a higher quality or higher relative value in this particular factor? Determinate means it's to support our decision process. This is something that is valuable to the government. Other factors, it has to be consistent. In other words, if you have a technical evaluation factor, it has to be consistent across your requirements documents. It has to be relevant. Sometimes you have to step back and think, does this really belong in this evaluation? Yes or no? It has to be reliable. So it has to, in other words, consistently, means if a range of people apply this evaluation factor in this evaluation standard, they should get the same answer. You shouldn't get a wide variance from one government evaluator to another when you're using a particular factor to evaluate the respondents. They should be independent. We'd like to have mutually exclusive, but independent factors. So there shouldn't be overlap from one evaluation factor to another. Validity means it measures what it claims to measure, and limited in number. More is not necessarily good. If you get too many, you start to water down the evaluation. Too few, and you don't maybe capture something that's important. But I find people tend to err on the side of creating too many evaluation factors. So the common evaluation factors for the FAA are technical, cost price, and past performance. And I would add to that small business participation. So the technical approach evaluates how a given offer is going to perform. Technically, it's going to perform the contract. It's probably the most difficult to capture in terms of evaluation factors. If you think the other two, past performance, it's pretty easy to go into CPARs and get a rating or talk to people who worked with this contractor before and get an evaluation. Cost price, it's numerical. Somebody's going to be higher, somebody's going to be lower. It's pretty easy, especially even breaking it down to a unit basis to come up with a number. The technical approach is a little bit more difficult to capture, a little bit more effort into developing evaluation factors. So some example factors. Do they have a good understanding of the requirements? Do they have a good technical approach? Do they have experience in this area? Do they have quality control methods in place, standardized technical processes? Do they show innovation, creativity in their approach? Do they adhere to industry standards and industry best practices? You can break that down into sub-factors, like indicated on the slide. But a caution, you don't want to break it down too far and generate too many sub-factors. Cost price, we said, must be an evaluation factor in every source selection. Again, that's important. It's going to be on your exam. Cost price must be an evaluation factor in every source selection. Price analysis can be used to examine and evaluate an offer's proposed price without necessarily getting into the separate cost elements. When you talk about price analysis, you talk about the overall big picture price. That comes up sometimes in a fixed price effort that doesn't require certified cost or pricing data. Cost analysis, on the other hand, has to be used to evaluate the reasonableness of individual cost elements. It's used in contracts with certified cost or pricing data when it's required as part of the proposal. Cost analysis is used to determine if a cost is fair and reasonable. Sometimes if the cost is realistic for the work that we're asking for, and how well the proposal cost represents what the cost of the contract should be. Usually establish that with comparing it to an independent government cost estimate. Also, you look at clusters and outliers when you look at cost. If everybody is within a certain zone for either the total price or a cost element, and somebody is an outlier, if they're outlier on the high side, in my mind, it's an indicator that they don't have the expertise in this area, so they see it as risk. So their price is high because they don't have a good handle on how to manage this area. If it's on the low side, they might not fully understand the implications of a given aspect of what's being asked for them to do in terms of work. So either way, you have a cluster of people around that seems sensible and reasonable in line with the independent government cost estimate, and somebody's high or low. It indicates a lack of either capability or understanding of what we're asking them to do. Cost realism analysis has to be performed on cost reimbursable contracts. It may be performed on fixed price with incentives. It independently reviews and evaluates specific elements of each offer's proposed cost estimate. Is it realistic? Does it reflect a clear understanding of what the requirements are? Is it consistent with the methods that they're outlining and talking about in their technical approach? So FAA has a hierarchy of relative importance of evaluation factors. This is also important. That number one is the technical approach is the most important evaluation factor in the FAA, followed by past performance, followed by cost and small business participation. So once the source selection team completes and develops evaluation factors, it's a good idea to step back and critique them, give them take a look, see if it makes sense. A guy I used to work for used to call it the sniff test for the evaluation factor. Make sure each evaluation factor actually belongs in the source selection, and try to put on a critical hat. You're looking for stuff that maybe shouldn't be there for whatever reason. Some of the more common problems associated with evaluation factors are shown on this table. Sometimes they're vague or ambiguous, which again, if it's vague or ambiguous is different evaluators look at it and you get a wide range for the same offer and on their evaluation if it's not really clear what you're asking for in the evaluation factor. Sometimes there's inconsistency between the requirements document, the preparation instructions, and the evaluation factors. So you need to make sure that there's consistency across the board. Absence of a relationship to the requirements document. So you have an evaluation factor that has no bearing or doesn't seem to be related to what you're asking in terms of the work. Missing elements. So there's something that's the opposite. There's something that is in your statement of work, but we're not evaluating. We're not asking for proof, or it's not part of the evaluation factors. And finally, just logical fallacies. So correct, things that just don't make sense. We've got another breakout exercise coming up. And this is about critiquing evaluation factors. Okay, so I'm going to put you in your breakout rooms. You'll have a scenario to read and then excerpts from a performance work statement. And it's for employee transport services. I want you to critique the draft technical and management evaluation factors using the questions that are provided. And the questions are here on this next slide. First, you're going to look at an evaluation factor and say, should it be an evaluation factor? Considering, does it emphasize a major area of importance as part of the performance work statement? Can the evaluation factor be evaluated with a simple yes or no, pass, fail? Or is the evaluation factor stated in a manner that the offers can provide additional value to their proposals? Second, is the evaluation factor clearly written? And if not, how could you rewrite it to make it a little bit more clear? And are there any missing evaluation factors, something that was in the performance work statement that is not being asked? So it is, let's see, this would take us up to the next break. I'm going to put you into your breakout rooms for 25 minutes. This is on page 99 of your participant guide, and it's in the workbook on page 22. So any questions before I put you into your breakout rooms? Again, page 99, your participant guide is the scenario, and workbook page 22. Any questions before I send you off? I think it'll be pretty straightforward when you read the scenario. You'll understand. So I'd like to get an answer for each of the evaluation factors, and then identify if there's anything that's missing, needs to be added to the list. I'll start it now. I'll set a timer for 25 minutes. Give me a green thumbs up if you finish early, and otherwise I'll see you in about 25 minutes.
Number of years, and maybe even specify, doing transport services for a government, a government agency as well. That could be a part of it too.
Hey, welcome back, guys. Does any group need more time on this? Are we good? We're good, and we're also up against a break. So let's do this. This will be our last break before lunch. Why don't we take a 10-minute break, and then we'll discuss the critiquing of these evaluation factors when we get back from a 10-minute break. Does that sound good to everybody? I'll take that as a yes. All right. Good deal. I'll put you in the back into the lobby and set a timer, and I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, guys, welcome back. I don't like taking a break in the middle of an exercise, but it's kind of the way the timing worked out this time. Let's make sure everybody's back and have got their coffee refreshed and ready to go. Why don't you give me a green thumbs up if we're ready to discuss these 9 evaluation factors. That, by the way, that was the last break before lunch. So in about 50 minutes, we're going to take lunch. My plan is to try to start lunch as close as possible to straight up 12 o'clock. We'll see how it goes as we get into the non-price, non-cost evaluation factors. Okay, most people are back. Some people aren't. But, any questions before we talk about these evaluation factors? This is a valuable exercise in that it's important once the evaluation factors or the draft or initial evaluation factors are created is to crosswalk it. Let's take a look at the statement of work, the proposal or source selection documents, the risk analysis, and let's crosswalk with the evaluation factors. Work our way through this to make sure, number one, that everything that's important is covered, but number two, that nothing is that's not important has found its way into the evaluation factors. So we're going to start. Let's do this. See, there's 9. We'll just take start with group 1, evaluation factor 1, and staff transportation services are in compliance with the rules and guidelines as presented in the FAA Human Resources Policy Guidance, as well as other applicable state and other laws and regulations when transporting individuals. Somebody from group 1, is that a reasonable evaluation factor? Is that one that we'd want to carry into our source selection as evaluation? Your microphones are off in group 1.
Sorry about that, Jim.
It's all right, Chris.
So for this factor, it seemed like this was just something that was basic. Like, you have to follow the FAA Human Resources Policy and Guidance, as well as applicable state and other laws or regulations when transporting. To me, that's kind of like a basic thing that they're going to have in their statement of work. So I don't necessarily think that this would be a good evaluation factor that you would kind of get some type of value. I don't think you would get any value from an offer's proposal of this. I think this is something you could do like as a pass fail. Like, will you follow all the rules? Yes or no, things of that nature. So I don't necessarily think that this would be a proper evaluation factor as stated, or if you had it, it would be like maybe like a go, no go factor. Like, will you follow all the rules or what have you? So I think it would be one of those type of factors. If you had it, I don't think it would necessarily be one that you would use in a best value type thing. I think it'd just be something that you can do yes or no on it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Chris. This isn't basketball, but that's a slam dunk. And you'll find, but most of the time, if you can answer the question with just yes or no, it doesn't do a good job of discriminating between vendors. And it's probably just something that is required as part of the statement of work. So excellent answer. This probably wouldn't be considered.
And as a basketball, I will say as a basketball fan, I didn't like the reference about a slam dunk because I'm a Lakers fan, and that's a whole different thing. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying on that one. It's really nothing that says, hey, you got to provide. Again, there's no value added to it. I think just something you can just say yes or no to.
Very good.
Christian.
Yes, Anthony.
Peter.
Yeah, I know. Don't remind me. Sorry about that, Jim. Just had to vent a little bit.
I'm with you, Christian.
All right. What about group 2? Let's look at evaluation factor 2, which says all staff transport personnel must have passed a public trust background investigation. Is that a good evaluation factor?
We said it was not. We could just have it as a requirement in the PWS, right? It's not something that you can kind of provide value in. It's just, do they have it or do they not? And if they don't, they're not in. So, we kind of lumped items 1, 2, and 3 as, they should just be PWS requirements, and we don't need to know how you meet it. It's just you meet it, yes or no. And items 4 and 6 is where kind of the best value and trade-off occurs.
Okay, that's a good overview. I think you're, off the top of my head, I think you're right, but we're going to get into the individual factors. Good answer. Thank you, Nicole. What about evaluation factor 3, group 3? It states train transport personnel necessary to ensure 12 hours per day, 5 days per week service. All drivers must have a Class C commercial driver's license valid in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Group 3, is that a...
With this one, we said that they're going to need multiple drivers. Of federal laws that you're going to have only up to a maximum of 10 hours behind the wheel a day for a CDL license. So that requirement is incomplete as written.
Okay. Incomplete as written probably wouldn't work. And again, it's every offer is going to have to offer that. I mean, to carry passengers, you're going to have a Class C commercial driver's license. So it doesn't really distinguish from one vendor to another. What about Group 4? Let's take evaluation factor 4. The fleet must be able to accommodate multiple staff, wheelchair access, and other cargo. Is that an appropriate evaluation factor? Group 4.
Yes.
So
That-
go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
So I think it's appropriate, but it is a little bit vague because it doesn't give some parameters on what cargo would look like potentially.
Okay.
You know, do you need a semi truck available to meet that requirement, or is it like baggage and maybe test equipment or demo equipment, or what is it? So there's no like size, weight factors that I saw with the program.
Yeah, it has potential, but I agree. It probably needs to be developed because it's an important factor, but it's vaguely written. Especially the whole wheelchair access. You know, how are you going to do that? How are you going to demonstrate in your proposal that you're going to be able to do that? Probably like Nicole said, it's probably one that will be picked up as an evaluation factor, but probably needs to be refined a little bit better.
A lot better.
A lot better. So
Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you expect to carry?
That's why I added in, they had no safety or accident prevention measures, no ADA compliance, and things like that should have been added in as factors.
Yeah, good point, Anthony. Very, very good. Back to Group 1 with number 5. Due to the important meetings with FAA and DOT leadership, timeliness in pickup and delivery is essential. Group 1, is this a good evaluation factor? And should that be included?
It's kind of a vague factor. It's like, due to important meetings with the FAA and DOT leadership, timeliness and pickup is essential. Of course, we know it's essential. And it's included in the PWS. So again, like factors 1 and 2, I think it's just one of those things where it's a requirement. So you have to be, on time. I don't necessarily know if you had this written as a particular factor, would you be able to get some type of value added to it? I don't know if, a vendor could provide you like metrics in terms of their past, contracts doing this type of stuff to show that they were, late a certain percentage of time. But if it's essential for them to be, on time, it just seems like that's just like a basic requirement that they have to have. So I'm not necessarily sure it would be a good evaluation factor. It just seems like it's something that they have to do, and it's a requirement. It doesn't necessarily I don't think this as an evaluation factor will bring any type of value from an offer's proposal. So it's just a basic requirement from our standpoint.
Okay. Unless they can maybe show in their scheduling. I mean, they have a minimum 5-minute wait time. If they can show through their scheduling that they can reduce that to 3 minutes. And I mean, I can see, advantages.
Well, it states every 20 minutes. The requirement is every 20 minutes.
Yeah. Every 20 minutes that somebody departs.
So, yeah.
That's right.
So it's like anything else, you'd have to put your meetings around that schedule, unless you go ahead and change it, or put an RIP or a request for change to accommodate the 5 or 3 minute wait time and so forth. I mean, you can get down to the nitty gritty, but this is pretty much a generic, self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And it's only between two buildings. It's not running back and forth to airports or anything like that. It's just between the two buildings.
Brent, that makes sense. One thing that confused me is it says departure every 20 minutes, but you shouldn't wait more than 5 minutes.
That's correct.
Mathematically, that's inconsistent.
Right.
All right. What about number 6, Nicole, or group 2, somebody? Ability to handle surge capabilities or surge capacities.
We felt like this is a good evaluation factor and kind of gets at the crux of, providing transportation services, especially kind of on a routine basis. Sure, you can show me that you can provide it within my parameters, but, what is your process for handling a surge in people or cargo? This is a good factor. Obviously needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. Can the FAA provide, anticipated levels or timeframes of surges? Maybe there's important meetings that happen at either of these two buildings, twice a year. So can we help the contractor and give them an estimated surge time and in people or surge time in cargo? But overall, we felt this was a good factor.
Okay, and I think looking across the answers, it looked like all 4 groups kind of agreed that of the technical evaluation factors, 4 and 6 were the 2 that provided some value as an evaluation. Let's move on to the management evaluation factors with group 3.
Jim, just wanted to add though, since I am in 10A and we've had everything from protests to street closures to bomb threats to fires and etc., that there isn't any mention that I saw anyway that gave some leeway for them to be safe when these things are occurring, because the drop-off point maybe is closed off or something like that. I think that somewhere there needs to be something that addresses that.
That's definitely, one that might need to be added. That's a really good point. What else might need to be added as a technical evaluation factor? Anything, anybody? One of the things I was thinking of is I didn't see any accommodation for time of day and traffic. I'm sure it's very different if you're, trying to transport somebody between buildings between 8 and 9 in the morning versus 5 and 6. I guess they don't start until 6 versus 6 and 7. I don't live or work in Washington, D.C., but I'm sure you guys have traffic issues. Let's go on.
But that would just be like unforeseen. I mean, you have traffic incidents every day. You have, contractors working on lights and crosswalks and things like that. I mean, you could actually put it in there, but I mean, driving in DC, you can make it anywhere within 20, 25 minutes, even on a bad day.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I'm talking now in DC. I'm not talking like me driving from Leesburg. If I catch it at the right time, if I leave by 5:30, 6 o'clock, if I leave anytime after 6 o'clock, 267, 95, 495 is like a parking lot, but it keeps moving unless there's an accident. I mean, so instead of doing 65, you're doing like 35.
Okay. Interesting. Let's go to the management evaluation factors. Group 3, number 7 is a resilient scheduling request system that supports both immediate and future transportation requirements. Frank Burns, what do you think of that as an evaluation factor? You put yes. Why do you think that works?
So we put that down as yes. This way, like the resilient, what was brought up earlier, it's a resilient scheduling request system. they'll be able to handle hopefully anything that's thrown at them. So what was said before with traffic and protests and road closures and everything else, plus also future transport requirements. So if they're having some kind of, I don't know, convention in DC, some kind of FAA DOT event where we're going to get a large amount of people for a long sustained time, going to hotels, coming into the conference, that's a factor in here as well. This way we're planning on bigger events and being able to handle it, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. This is a good evaluation factor. That's kind of the crux of the whole proposal, is their ability to schedule and provide transportation. I think that would be a big determinant of additional value and drive the decision process for the FAA. What about number 8? This will be a group 4. Number 8, a responsive operation and maintenance program that ensures the ability to meet the 12-hour per day, 5-day per week requirement.
Yeah, we kind of discussed that, Anthony and I. So where it says, excuse me, give me a minute here. Let me go back. Where it says that the contractor plays a very important role in transporting all FAA staff, particularly when mobility issues. District contractor responsible for the fleet.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, hang on, let me finish reading it. The contractor responsible for fleet maintenance and management. So again, it's kind of vague, but again, it's just like the FAA GSA vehicles. I'm sure there's a past performance put in place, but that's just my take.
And it's kind of like if you're dealing with construction, just to use the example, you would do a design build. When you do a design build, that means everything, there's no write-ups, no extra write-ups or whatever, because the contractor has to resolve everything in-house. So as far as the management and maintenance is concerned, the onus is on the contractor. So we're not going to tell him how to do his maintenance, when he should do his maintenance. So it's all on, the onus is on him to make sure that his vehicles are up to speed and ready to do 12-hour shifts each day, Monday through Friday. So we didn't have to have a specific guideline for his maintenance of his vehicles, for his fleet and so forth. That's something they had to take care of in excuse me, my tongue got tired for a second. But the onus was on the contractor to make sure the fleet was up to maintenance capabilities.
I think you were saying blah 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 blah.
It's like when Charlie Brown talks to his parents. Yeah. Okay, good point, Anthony. I think I might expect them to describe what their planned maintenance system is as maybe a differentiator from one group to another. But it is critical for their ability to provide the service. It's just my thoughts. But either way, understand. What's the last one here? Number of years performing transport services. Is that a good differentiator? Is that a good evaluation factor?
The past performance, yes.
Okay. To show you've done it before, you've got a handle on it, you know how to deal with surprises, interruptions, you know what to expect.
They also could probably could add to it in terms of having like a minimum amount of years they have performing the staff services to kind of weed out the ones who have the experience versus those who have limited experience.
Yeah. Very, very good point. I don't expect somebody with 15 years to necessarily be better than somebody with 10 years, but I don't know if I'd want to hand a contract like this to somebody who's only been doing this for 6-9 months.
Right.
So, very good. All right. Any thoughts or questions? It's an extremely valuable process to crosswalk it and think individually, learn to be critical about each of the evaluation factors. We're about to roll on to lesson 2, which is developing non-cost, non-price evaluation factors. We've got 30 minutes to get our feet wet into this before we take a lunch break. So this is after this lesson, you'll be able to understand drafting non-cost, non-price factors for evaluating proposals and prioritizing them based upon their relative importance. This diagram came from a book from a woman named Margaret Rumbaugh, if you've ever seen it, and it's the only book I ever found that expressly addresses source selection. It's the title of her book is Understanding Government Contract Source Selection. And she has 6 steps, read the requirements, brainstorm critical factors, group evaluation factors, distinguish effective evaluation factors, write the standard for the evaluation factors, then evaluate the risk. We're going to talk about each of those steps in the next slides. So each source evaluation team member has to read and understand the requirements. That's sort of the starting point. Well, what is it we're writing evaluation factors for? So some questions to ask when you're looking through the documents. What's the objective of the procurement? What are likely problem areas? You want to make sure that you have some kind of evaluation focused on problem areas or anticipated risk. Does it require new or untested technology? Will it be hard to manage, and it will be difficult to predict costs or performance? Especially addressing the problem areas helps you sort of highlight things that might need specific evaluation criteria to make sure that the bidders have a plan on how to deal with problem areas. Next is brainstorm critical factors and sub-factors. So develop a list of potential evaluation factors that are essential. It's best to do this using, I find it as a group face-to-face using Post-its. Everybody sort of develop their list on their own, then come together and talk about evaluation factors as you put Post-its on the board. The reason is because that the next step is grouping the evaluation factors, and Post-its enables you to move them very easily. Also, it's important that you write them in complete sentences. It's a lot of times you just create a title for an evaluation factor, but you lose a lot of meaning. It's important to write your initial evaluation, your draft evaluation factors in full sentences, so everything that you mean is conveyed, is communicated onto a Post-it. The next is then grouping evaluation factors, and if you've ever worked with an affinity or a KJ diagram, you put factors that are closely related. They should be merged or combined so you don't duplicate the same evaluation factor. Have you worked with affinity diagrams? Anybody here? You know what I'm talking about when I talk about affinity diagrams? It's a methodology developed by a Japanese anthropologist. I don't know his name, but his initials are KJ. So it was originally called a KJ method. But everybody has these evaluation factors on the board, and then it's interesting, in silence you put them into groups. And the reason is a lot of times there's sort of when you vocalize something, vocalization is a left brain. Your sense or your feeling about something a lot of times is not verbalized. You just know these two evaluation factors go together. If you try to put it into words, sometimes you fail to do so. But something on a gut level tells you that they go together. That's why it's a silent grouping. And from groups, you then come up with headers for the groups. So it summarizes the groups. It's a method of group synthesis. It's fairly well documented as an affinity diagram process. Anthony put the term Microsoft Project. Does Microsoft Project have an affinity diagram approach? Anthony, I lost you.
I'm sorry. I was still on mute. I'm sorry, Jim. I was going to say it gives you the flexibility to expand as you put the line items on that are important, and you have your factors there, and you can add to it. So, and it explains what the factors are. Plus, it puts you on a timeline that everybody can agree with as well as you look at the whole solicitation process.
Okay. Makes sense. Very smart. So the idea of grouping is that you don't have duplicate factors, that you try to get the higher level to capture through synthesis the essence of some of these evaluation factors with hopefully without losing the meaning or the value of the evaluation itself. The next step 4 is distinguish evaluation factors. So it's structure a lot of times using the work breakdown structure for a project. Again, get back to Anthony's Microsoft project approach. It forces you to be comprehensive. It forces you to think about each aspect of your project and make sure that you're correctly evaluating what you expect in terms of work from the contractor. So you need to limit the evaluation factors. Try to get down to a manageable number. The next step is structuring the evaluation factors, and this is where the work breakdown structure really becomes a benefit. If you use a work breakdown structure, it helps the team effort to be comprehensive, so you know you're not missing anything. After the major tasks are identified, make sure that you have an evaluation factor that addresses or evaluates contractor proposed performance for each part of the major task that is part of the work breakdown structure. Here's an example. Yeah, as a project manager, for me, work breakdown structure was always, in my mind, when a project moved from conceptual and sort of squishy to the Germans call it growing hands and feet. It starts to take shape, and I can really see what it is we're going to do. So here's a work breakdown structure for an acquisition training course. The major ones being course materials, instructor qualifications, facilities and logistics management, and project management of individual training sessions. So you can start to see through work breakdown structure how you might structure evaluation factors. So here's some sample technical factors, again, for this fictitious acquisition training course. So these tables, the idea is to match each task for both the technical and management factors with typical evaluation factors, cost, quality, past performance, to make sure that something is dealing with each one of the evaluation factors. So once the tasks are matched with the evaluation factors, the factors can be categorized into logical groupings. So here's an example. Put the technical factor in course material development maintenance. It's high level off the work breakdown structure. So what might be an evaluation factor in cost, quality, two aspects of quality or past performance that we might want to show. The advantage of using a matrix like this is when you have a blank cell in a matrix, it's begging you to find something to fill it in. You might not use it as an evaluation factor, but it triggers your creativity. What might go here? Here's the same thing in this slide. For project management, for facilities and logistics management, if you put those high-level work breakdown structure elements and think about cost, quality, and past performance, what are the things? What might we want to evaluate from a prospective vendor in each one of those categories? So it triggers your thought process and forces you in developing evaluation factors to be very comprehensive, that you cover every aspect of the work breakdown structure. The next step is to limit the evaluation factors. We've said before that too many complicates the source selection process. When they're linked to the work breakdown structure, the next step is decide if you really need it or not. Does this really help us distinguish some of the things we noticed in the last exercise? If you can answer it with a simple yes or no, it's probably not a very good evaluation factor. A risk analysis will also help you identify the more important evaluation factors. It can help you prioritize which ones to keep and which ones maybe to drop. The next step is developing the standards. The standard is the measurement baseline that's used by the evaluators to determine whether a proposal meets or exceeds or fails, for that matter, a particular evaluation factor or sub-factor. So standards have to be written for each evaluation factor. This is how, as a group, we're going to apply this standard. This is how, it could be quantitative, numerical, scale 1 to 5, 1 to 10. It could be qualitative, it exceeds, meets, fails. Protests, a big part of coming up with a good plan, a good evaluation factor is to protect yourself in the event of a protest. Protests are upheld when it's determined that proposals were not consistently evaluated. So standards help the evaluation team with that consistency. So a standard should minimize the bias and ensure the evaluators know what they want in terms of merit and how to evaluate a given evaluation factor. I'm going to shut off everybody's microphone real quick. I'm getting some background noise. And then turn mine back on. So evaluative standards, I said, can be quantitative or qualitative. Not everything can be broken down into quantitative metrics. So qualitative is okay and acceptable. So quantitative, something like printer speeds, number of vehicles used in a transportation system, hours of battery backup, something like this. Qualitative, experience with a certain skill, sort of sometimes meets or exceeds or expectations. Some guidelines for writing standards. Standards, well written, are just important as the evaluation factors themselves. So you define the standard with a narrative description. Try to use precise language. Higher or lower ratings need to be compared against some stated target. You should only have one metric or one measurement per standard. They shouldn't be so high that proposals can't meet them, or so low that everybody qualifies. So they should be differentiate between vendors in that way. So avoid overly general standards. They should not allow offers to meet the standard just by saying yes or no, or yes by addressing the topic. Standards, they're not required in the solicitation, but they're also not prohibited. They do a lot to help a proposer tailor their proposal to meet the requirements of the government. They have to be consistent with a statement of work and consistent with the evaluation factors that are chosen. And the last step in Rumbaugh's book is to evaluate risk. And at this point, there's two main areas of risk that we're looking at. There's proposal risk and there's performance risk. Proposal risk is likelihood that the proposed approach will meet the government's cost, schedule, and performance requirement. We can assess this based on the definitions and the evaluation standards. There are two methodologies, either combining the evaluation factors and risk ratings into just a single, or you use a separate. Some people prefer a separate risk evaluation. Performance risk is assessing offers past or present performance record in order to establish some level of confidence. Do we really believe that this vendor is able to meet this requirement, that they're able to perform this work satisfactorily based upon, could be CPARs or based upon the people we've spoken with in other programs that they've worked with. So an example, risk rating, low risk, moderate risk, or high risk. Low risk, there's very little doubt based on their performance record that we think that they'll be able to perform this contract. Moderate risk, some doubt exists. High risk, significant doubt based on their performance that they'll be able to perform the proposed effort. Sometimes we just don't have any experience, so we just say unknown risk. So little or no relevant performance record is identifiable. We also need to prioritize the evaluation factors. When we talk about non-cost, non-price factors, we have to include a priority statement. Sometimes it's if there aren't a lot of them, it's as easy as just listing them in order. Other times you want to show relative weight, especially if there's a big disparity. Some are much more important than others. And the solicitation also has to state whether the combined non-cost, non-price evaluation factors are more important than cost and price, equally important to cost and price, or less important than cost and price. But we have to signal to the vendors where to put the emphasis in the preparation of their proposals. So the universal problem with any organization is always limited resources. Consequently, evaluation factors have to be prioritized so we can facilitate a selection decision. When the difference is small, like I said, we can just use here are the evaluation factors in order of priority. When some factors are much more important, we need some kind of a priority statement or even numerical weighting. We take 100 points and distribute it over the evaluation factors to show where we on the FAA side put our emphasis. A priority statement is just a narrative explaining which factors are more important. We should list the evaluation factors in descending order of importance and talk in a narrative statement about how one factor is more important than another. Numerical weighting should be normalized so that all the factors together add up to 100. And like I said, like it's important to know the relative importance of the various non-price, non-cost factors. The vendor is also entitled to know the importance of the combined non-price cost factors compared to the cost. So AMS requires at a minimum that we state that all non-cost, non-price evaluation factors when combined are either more important than the technical or the non-price, non-cost. Messing up this. All non-cost, non-price evaluation factors combined are either more important than cost and price, equally important cost and price, or less important than cost and price. So scoring plans or some rating system provide a common scale used to assess proposals' merit, evaluate one against another. With respect to evaluation factors, it's a good way to do it. They can be adjectival, they can be color-coded, they can be numerical. I've got a couple of examples I'm going to go to just before lunch. Numerical in the 90s to 100, maybe the color is blue, or if it's adjectival, you might say it's exceptional, but it means it exceeds specified performance. Green might be 70 to 90. It's acceptable, it meets the standards. Yellow might be marginal, it fails to meet the evaluation standards. And below 60 could be red, there's a color-coded. Or adjectival, just say it's unacceptable. Fails to meet the minimum requirements. It could be identified as a deficiency. With a risk rating, the same thing. Blue might be outstanding. Purple is good. Green is acceptable. Yellow is marginal. Red is unacceptable. Where we're combining risk with the evaluation factor. So blue, the risk of unsuccessful performance is very low. It meets the requirements, very low performance risk. Lowest price technically available is a little different. The non-price, non-cost proposals, they're being evaluated for acceptability. There's no comparison one proposal to another like you do on a trade-off. So there's some minimum threshold that you'd expect for them to meet. So they're being evaluated just as acceptable or unsuccessful. Acceptable or unacceptable. I'm sure some of you have been through the development of the evaluation factors and standards, and anything we need to touch on the non-price, non-cost evaluation factors that I might have missed before we take off for lunch?
I'll just give you a quick. So, my biggest problem is, and I won't name company names, but there's such a high, they're like cherry pick businesses. So they'll start in one name and then they'll bring somebody, another or whatever, and they keep. And the past performance thing is really getting to be hard, because a lot of the contractors, like I said, I've been in the agency 26 years.
Yeah.
A lot of the contractors have either changed management or changed business names or going back and forth. So the past performance is sometimes hard to read, especially if we're using the SAMI method to get in. That's the only thing that that I've had to question on a lot of these contractors. You might have the same gentleman or contractor that you work for, and the supervisors and foremen and all the same, but they got different engineers, they got different install crews, and that makes a big difference in your contracting core. Because if you, and I used to own a contracting business, so if you have guys that can go in and, lack of a better term, get it done, blow it out, make the customer happy, FAA happy, everything's good, and then you get, those guys move on, start their own business or whatever, then it's like starting all over because you're retraining them per se.
Brett, are you suggesting do you think sometimes these guys, they change the name of their company just to avoid the connection to their past performance?
Oh yeah. Some of them do. Yeah, they split away.
Okay.
Well, I mean, everybody knows it, but Parsons is the number one. I mean, I was involved with Capstone in Alaska, and that was, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Parsons was a big part of that, and now they've been bought up by Omentum and some of the other companies. So, and again, it's they're using the past prior performance off another company to come in and do the same work that they really couldn't do the first time.
Interesting. I find in dealing with construction contracts, I always look to the names of the superintendents, because I find the consistency of the superintendent.
That's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, they bring the expertise. The project manager, you can swap them out for the most part.
Yep.
But
you read between the lines.
Very interesting. Good point. Anybody else add anything on any thoughts on non-price, non-cost evaluation factors before I send you guys off to lunch? I'll mention one other thing real quick, Brent. When I worked for the state of Tennessee, we had by law, we had to take the lowest price bidder. So we were in the construction area. We were dealing with a bunch of bottom feeders. It was really rough. I mean, they're low price with the idea that they're just going to claim their way to profitability, and it was a constant fight. So, state of Tennessee, since I left, has transitioned to best value, best thing they ever did.
Yep.
Okay, guys, it is 5 minutes to 12. Eastern, 5 minutes to 8 in Juneau, Alaska, and we're about to take a lunch. I'm going to put you back in the lobby and set a timer for 60 minutes. So at about 4 minutes to 1 o'clock Eastern, we'll be back here, nourished and refreshed and ready to move on. So thank you for good discussions. We'll see you in 60 minutes. Okay. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Hope you had a nice, nourishing lunch. I know I did. I want to say this about non-price, non-cost evaluation factors. Matter of fact, I'm not going to say it yet. First, let's make sure everybody made it back. We got a couple of people still out. Karen, you're ahead of the curve. You get the green thumb award. Give me a green thumbs up if you guys are back and ready to roll. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say. The GSA publishes this template for non-price, non-cost evaluation factors. And I find sometimes if you're writing something like that, if you look at someone else's words, you never take it word for word, but it's a good starting point to modify and come up with your own non-price, non-cost evaluation factors. It's organized into technical factors, past performance, management factors. And I've included, it's a Word document, and I've included it in the, well, I don't see it. Oh, it failed. Look, at file could not be uploaded. Okay, I'll do this again. I know why. It's because I've got it open. Tell you what, I'll go ahead and share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. Here it is, courtesy of the federal government, published by the GSA, evaluation factors. And so corporate experience, technical capabilities, which is, I find the most difficult to write. But then it has multiple, it has different samples, sample 2, sample 3, different ways of writing evaluation factors, different wording. And you may find it helpful. It's an option. I think it's a nice tool. I'll stop sharing, close this document, and all I'm going to do is drag it over and post it in the course materials section. It's called GSA Evaluation Factors. It's a Word document, and it's uploading now. There you go. If you're interested, it might be a nice tool to have if you're involved in writing evaluation factors. And it's in the course material. Number 5, GSA evaluation factors. So, on with the show. Let's go back to Module 4. It's time to talk about preparing and issuing the solicitation. So the learning objectives in Module 4, and there are 3 of them. We're going to talk about the solicitation format, preparing proposal instructions, instruction to the evaluation team, and amendment of solicitation. So lesson 1 has to do with solicitation format. After this lesson, you'll understand formats used for commercial and non-commercial item acquisitions and the associated content. So, of course, the format depends on the service being purchased, whether it's non-commercial or commercial. For commercial products or services, primary document the FAA uses for solicitation is the SIR, the Screening Information Request. For non-commercial items, it uses a uniform contract format. I'll I'll call it UCF. The UCF is really just a table of contents for organizing contractual documents. It organizes it to 4 parts, actually 13 lettered sections. It can be found in the front of Standard Form 33. The sections are, there's a section for schedule, a section for contract clauses, a section for list of documents, exhibits and attachments, and a section for representations and instructions. Is this a test? What kind of test, Brad? Is it on the test? No. Did I understand your question?
Yeah, sorry. The microphone is the unmute button is delayed after we come back from a break. Sorry about that. Yeah, the question was, is this a test question?
Okay. Yeah, and the answer is no. But it's good that you say that, because I've got the exam opened over here on the side, and I look over it, sort of organized according to the sections that we cover. So I'm trying to sort of keep the questions from the exam in mind to make sure I cover everything as we move forward. And thank you for asking, Brad.
Yeah, thanks. We are faithful students and loyal to the process.
Well, the process is going to get us all to pass this class successfully. All right. Ask this. When measuring an offer's quality of product or service, timeliness of performance, and cost control, all 3 of those are examples of which evaluation factor? And the answer to that is past performance. We said that technical approach was the most important of the evaluation factors. We're now talking about a little bit of the format. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I said that the standard form, the UCF, Uniform Contract Format, is organized into 13 sections or 4 parts. Section M, as in mama, Section M contains source selection methods and evaluation factors. That is important to know, that Section M of the uniform contract. The question doesn't say anything about the uniform contract. It just says, so where in the solicitation would a contractor find information about source selection method and evaluation factors? And the answer, because you attended this class, and Brad was good enough to remind me to take a look at the questions on the final, that it's Section M. So let's see. I talked about that. Talked about uniform contract format. I'm going to talk a little bit more. It uses a procurement instruction identification number, or PIIN. It allows the FAA to identify and control and track procurement actions using that number. The number is used also to log things and track things in PRISM, the Procurement Request Information System. I'm sure you're all infinitely familiar with PRISM. PRISM is required, by the way, for all procurement requests and procurement instructions, including written screening information requests, purchase orders, delivery orders, task orders, agreements. It's pretty much the way we used to be able to do things in writing. I was told some time ago, it's pretty much now everything has to be electronic in PRISM. It's become sort of the way the FAA does stuff. So a sample PIIN, procurement instrument identification number. The first 2 digits is the procurement agency. 69 would be the DOT. The next 4 would be activity code, activity address code, rather. The next one, a digit, would be the fiscal year. R would be the procurement instrument type, and the serial number on the end. Ishmael, did you raise your hand?
No, that's me, Anthony.
Oh, Anthony. Oh, you actually raised your hand.
Wanted to add that this number is also used as your solicitation number. So you can
Okay.
always go back, pick it up if you would need to look at the information, what was announced and sent out there.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right, I appreciate that. So, it's an important number. It tracks. It sounds like much of what you do in procurement. Ishmael had a question about will the test be in groups? I'm assuming you mean take it in your group so you guys can discuss the questions and answer them together. The answer is no. It's an individual assessment. So you'll be taking the final exam individually. Ishmael, did that answer your question? Okay, good. Good question, though. We need to reduce any kind of uncertainty, any kind of issues or uncertainty or cloudiness or that you have about the final exam. Please feel free to ask, and we'll get things cleared up because I want to eliminate test anxiety to whatever extent, the greatest extent possible. So we talked about PIN. The next is contract line item number, CLIN structure. It's usually the second page of a contract includes a brief description of the supplies or services and their estimated prices and costs. It looks something like this. There's a sample contract line item number, quantity, unit price, total price, and a little bit of a description. It has a single unit price. It's separately identifiable as a contract line item number. It usually has a separate delivery schedule or delivery due date and a single accounting classification. Any of you guys work with contract line item numbers in your contracts with suppliers and vendors? Okay, Karen says yes.
WAS.
So, I'm sorry, say it again.
Yeah, and WAS we use those.
Okay, so you pretty much track the performance and deliveries of a contractor against a contract line item number?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I see these a lot. I haven't really been in charge of tracking them at that level. The stuff I do as a core is a little different, but some of the higher ups have to do that.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Provisions and clauses. You may include other AMS provisions and clauses and solicitations and contracts by addendum. There's an AMS policy associated with that. If you're really curious, it's 3.2.2.3 as part of the AMS policy. So an example, an indefinite delivery contract. Let's say you're using an indefinite delivery contract. The use of options in the government might be in the government interest. So for something like runway maintenance, site investigation, property protection, you can include specific clauses or provisions and clauses by reference. So some problems with solicitations include the inconsistency between the solicitation and the associated documents that go along with it. So work breakdown structure or specification or something might not line up with a statement of work. So all these documents, they should align for it to be a manageable project. Inconsistency within the solicitation. So between the description, the FAA's requirements and proposal preparation instructions or something, there might be information that's misleading. Requesting too much information from the offers. So try to keep it just to what you need to make your decision and lift your level of confidence that you believe this vendor is actually able to successfully perform the contract. And the last is overly prescriptive. So in other words, unnecessary use of design requirements, where you take the creativity, innovation away from the vendor because you're telling them too much how you want them to do the job, rather than sticking to just what we need and leaving the how to them. Next lesson is dealing with preparing proposal instructions. We're going to talk about developing proposal instructions to make sure the offers submit information required for proposal evaluation. So what are, quick discussion, what are some qualities of effective submission instructions? What are some of the characteristics of effective instructions to bidders on how they should prepare their proposal? What are some of the things you would expect? Anybody? I'll start. Okay. You'd expect the instructions to be complete. And there's everything we want as the FAA. You expect to be somewhere in those instructions and to be thorough. But at the same time, not overly long and complex or restrictive. The whole idea is it should help the offerers in their preparation of the task and submission of their proposal. And it should also help the evaluators apply the evaluation factors. So it should work as a system. Okay.
Wasn't there a time when they were pushing the philosophy plain language?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yes, and they still are.
Okay, they're still pushing plain language. So try to get away
Yes.
from acronyms. Try to get away from government speak. So what's involved in the philosophy or the push for plain language? Just keep it simple to the bidders. Is it?
Yeah, I think if I recall, I'm sure others could help, but it was be succinct, be clear, state what you need to state, but don't wordsmith it to death.
Okay.
Yeah, write it like someone who isn't right into that world could understand it. So conveying meaning and understanding, and also avoiding passive voice, things like that.
Yeah, Sally and Brent, that's good advice anytime you're preparing a document to submit to vendors. So that makes sense. I'm looking. Joshua made the comment. What is required, but still sufficiently open. He used the word vague. I'm going to say open, so each contractor can shine. So they can, fill in the blanks and show them their specific company way of doing things and why it's better than their competitors in a given bidding situation. Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to turn off everybody's microphone real quick. Turn mine back on. So this figure that's on the slide right now, it illustrates the relationship between proposal preparation instructions and other pre-solicitation actions. Of course, you develop a procurement plan. And as a result of that plan, it produces some of the requirements documents. Requirements documents flow into a source selection strategy. How we're going to go about, based on market research, sourcing this particular procurement. And that turns into proposal preparations instructions. So you've got instructions for technical proposal, management proposal, price cost proposal, and sometimes past performance proposal. The CERT guidelines are outlined in AMS policy. The AMS policy, it's a long one, 3.2.2.3.1.2.1, but it gives instructions for administrative management, technical, and past performance, as well as certified cost or pricing data if required. That's all outlined in AMS policy. The submission instructions, most common items prescribed in the submission instructions include the number of volumes. It's almost always at least two, but it can be as many as 4 separate volumes, sometimes separate for technical management cost and executive summary. Some agencies require a separate past performance volume. You may or may not. Front matter includes a cover, title page, table of contents, list of figures, glossaries, compliance, or sometimes they ask for cross-check matrices showing where they met the requirements from the SIR. Font and typesetting is sometimes dictated. Spacing, usually 1.5 or 2 spaces between lines, and other layout instructions, things like margins. Page limits are always a good idea. Consider a limit on the number of pages. Some bidders think that more pages they get in there, that improves their chances. Actually, it decreases the probability that the whole thing is going to be read. So usually 50 to 100 pages is adequate. You try to guide bidders in that direction, not to go overboard. So past performance information should include the past contract reference number, so we can find somebody who worked on that contract, talk to them, the type of contract, the dollar value, the place it was performed, the date of the award, whether it's still ongoing, any subcontracting that they use, and the email addresses of at least 2 points of contact. And I want to say this, that will be your primary contact. They'll give you the email addresses. And of course, these are people they work with, have a good relationship. They're going to call them up and coach them. We're bidding on this. Would you put in a good word for us? Make sure to emphasize that we did this and this and this on your contract. So the primary contacts are always coached up. They know what to say. I like to ask the primaries for somebody who's not on the list, somebody whose email addresses were not given as a point of contact who worked on this contract, and that would be secondary. And then ask the secondary for somebody, see if you can get even deeper. Somebody, you get into the weeds of people who work with this contractor that the contractor didn't coach, telling them what they wanted to say, and you get a little bit closer to an accurate representation of how they performed on the contract. That's true of, also with job candidates. Candidates, they give their references, and they always coach up their references. So it's important to ask the references for references, so you get people who weren't coached. So we need to specify whether certified cost or pricing data are required, whether the offerer is allowed to submit a request for exception from the requirement of certified cost or pricing data. We might ask for other data other than what's certified or pricing data, and there might be a requirement for pre-award or post-award access to their books. Has anybody ever been involved in that, asking for access to a vendor's books, financial records, cost data as part of their evaluation? I imagine it doesn't come up very often.
The only time is certified payroll.
Okay.
If you're a core or CO, you're certified payroll. There's been times, cost, that would, like, certified costs would be like your cost estimate. Like if you would go back and review and say, contractor A and contractor C, and you go and look back and say, well, shit, they were pretty close, $5, $10, $100, but that's the only time I've ever had to do it. But mainly just the certified payroll.
Okay, and this is in the proposal phase before the award?
Because it goes back to past performance.
Okay.
So that's part of the requirement, that payroll and pay and meeting the manufacturers and their subcontractors.
Okay. All right, interesting. So it does actually come up. Good. So I've got another breakout session that's coming up. It's about 20 minutes in your breakout groups, and this is It's on page 146 of your student guide and page 28 in your workbook. And we're gonna look at what belongs in proposal instructions in the evaluation section. So you've got a scenario that you're going to read. It's a relatively short scenario, and then you've got multiple excerpts, and you need to identify which section of the solicitation each excerpt should be included. And let's see where I can go back and reference. Actually, it's part of the question. Okay, yeah, so it lists the sections A through F and asks you which section is for a particular excerpt. So I'm going to put you in your groups again, this time for about 20 minutes. Read the scenarios. First, delete everything that's in there, except I noticed some people deleted their group names. I want you to make sure that your group names are still in there. But delete the other stuff and answer the, how many, 7, 8, 9, looks like there's 12 different excerpts that you have to indicate which section in the screening information request, in which section it should be placed. So answer the numbered sections, each of 12, and I'll see you on the other end of 20 minutes. Any question before I put you in your breakout groups? I'll put the instructions in the instructions section. And see you in 20 minutes. Okay, guys, welcome back. I brought you back just a couple minutes too early last time. I'll put you back in so everybody can finish. I'm going to mute everybody's microphone. There we go. And turn my microphone back on. We've got about 15 minutes, so we'll probably review the answers to this exercise, and then call it quits. Not call it quits. Excuse me. Then take our next break. But this exercise is asking you which section you would put the different areas. And if you're familiar with Standard Form 33, I'll share it on my screen real quick. It looks like this. Okay, and if you've worked with uniform contract format, you've used this before. And again, besides the information about the contract and the PIN number, it's mostly this section, which is an outline. The schedule, the contract clauses, the list of documents, exhibits, and attachments, and representations and instructions. So, and it's organized into parts A through M. So it's this, with reference to the pages, is sort of just an outline on how to write and submit your screening information request or uniform contract. Have you worked with that before? Do you use Standard Form 33? Anybody?
No. The other people did that in another office, and then we evaluated what came in based on that, I'm assuming.
Okay, so you're saying you don't see it very much where you work, Sally?
Contracting officers use it for new solicitations all the time.
Okay, that's good. All right, Anthony, thank you. So let's just start. Let's do, again, we'll take them in order, groups 1 through 4, and we'll take a look at each excerpt and talk about where it belongs. We'll start with group 1 with the excerpt 1. Technical factor is more important than price factor, blah, blah, blah. Which section of the screening information request would you place this?
We put that in section M, evaluation of award. So answer F.
F, evaluation of award. Excellent. Okay, good. I agree with that. Let's go on. Number 2, group 2. Offers business proposal shall consist of cost and pricing data and administrative management data. Which section would you place that? Group 2?
We said section E, instructions to offer.
Okay, maybe an F, but you said
Maybe
the
F.
instructions. Okay, I'd agree with that.
Sometimes people put duplicative language in L&M.
Okay.
Not that it's the right thing to do, but to re-emphasize a point. So we said maybe F sometimes.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Group 3. Excerpt 3. Pricing data must be prepared with supporting documents,
We got C, deliveries or performance, and D, list of attachments.
Okay, deliveries, performance, list of attachments. That would make sense. I could also see it in the instructions to offerers. Okay.
All right.
What about group 4, number 4? Offerers shall complete section 1, blah, blah, blah.
When the way we list it, we discussed E, Echo, and D Delta, and ultimately thought leaning toward D.
Okay, leaning towards, I see. That's why you wrote E and D little and then capital D.
Yes.
D is what we selected.
Okay, list of attachments. I can see, and I can understand the debate. I could see it fitting in list of attachments or in instructions to offers. That makes sense. Let's go back to group 1, technical proposal. Factor 5, technical proposals shall not exceed 150 pages. Group 1.
Group 4 taking E instructions. That's Anthony.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'd agree with that. I think a lot of these things fall into instructions to offers, it seems, but I would agree with that also. Let's go with group 2, number 6, performance work statement. Where would you find that?
We said A and D. We've seen where the statement of work is included as a part of the SIR. And we've also seen where the statement of work is maybe so lengthy that it's not included within the SIR document, but it's listed as an attachment to the contract.
Wow. Okay. Nicole, you play baseball? Because you keep hitting home runs.
I couldn't do it without my group. This is the group effort. So we've been working hard in our breakouts.
Okay. Number 7, let's go group 3. Contracting officer's representative as a duly authorized representative, blah, blah, blah. Performing
B,
final inspection and acceptance. B,
inspection and acceptance.
Right on. Yeah, that's pretty much the only place where that would be. That makes good sense. And group 4, number 8, FAA will monitor a contractor's performance under this contract.
We had C,
deliveries and performance.
Okay,
yeah, it might also be B, inspection and acceptance, but yeah, deliveries and performance makes good sense. And you also had, it looks like, B and C. Okay, good. B is written small and C is written big because you guys discussed it. Good.
Right.
Okay, let's go on with number 9, back to group 1. The period of performance shall be based upon 12 months and 4 12-month option periods.
So we had deliveries and performance. I would also think that would also could be in the deliveries and performance. Yeah, on answer C, deliveries and performance. If it wasn't an answer or an option, but you might have that in section B as well.
Okay. Okay. I would agree. Deliveries and performance.
What number
let's
was
go-
that again? I'm sorry.
That's number 9.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. You might even see that in instructions to offers, depending upon how you organize your screening information request.
Yeah, we had A in instructions.
Okay. Group 2, let's look at number 10. All questions or inquiries concerning this list station must be submitted via email to Kathy.
We had E, the instructions to offer is typically in the general instructions at the beginning of section L. Or
Okay.
Yep.
Whatever we
Perfect.
call it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And Kathy CO at federal.gov would agree with that also. Okay, group 3, number 11, the evaluation of the technical approach will be based on T1, 2, 3, 4.
F, evaluation for award.
Evaluation for award. Yeah, I think you're
Yep.
right there. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think it would fit easily anywhere else. And last one before we take a break is group 4. You get number 12. Proposals shall be submitted electronically to Kathy at federal.gov by 5 o'clock.
Yep, we had E as in instructions to offerers.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. And again, if you work with standard form 33, sometimes you organize things a little differently, different content in different sections, but it's pretty straightforward. Sections A through M. I don't know why this exercise, the answers didn't reflect sections A through M. But it's Form 33 kind of forces you to think in terms of how you would categorize different information and helps you kind of organize it. Helps you be complete in preparing your request for proposal or your screening information request. All right, we're at 5 minutes till 2. Why don't we go ahead and take our next to the last? No, it's not next to the last, is it? I guess we got 3. It could. That's right. I'm the instructor. I can do anything I want, right? So let's take another break. I'm going to put you in the lobby for 10 minutes. I'll set a timer so you can see when we need to be back. And thanks again for the discussion. I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. Okay, here we go. First of all, let's make sure everybody made it back. Give me a green thumbs up. Let me know we're back from break. You got your coffee or hot tea if you're British. All served up and ready to go. Okay, looks like we're in good shape. Let's talk a little bit about timing for this course. Expectations for this course. You can't see the slide numbers, but I can. Instructors go by slide numbers. This entire course has 236 slides. It represents the material that we're going to cover. We're on slide 144. So you can see we're a little more than halfway, even though this is day 2 of 5. There was a rather large exercise that the acquisition training branch asked me not to teach. It's a 3-hour breakout session. They said that they want to revise the handbook on that, or the handout rather on that. So they asked us not to teach that one. So that gifted us a lot of time. My plan is to finish the bulk of the material, if not all the material, in 4 days, so that when we come back on Friday, all we're looking at is doing a review and getting into the final exam. Anthony, did you have a question or did your hand pop up? Okay. Looks like coming back, a lot of the microphones shut off. So we'll keep that in mind. You have to turn on your microphone. It's going to take a while to initialize. So I wanted to throw it out there. That's sort of my plan. We're in pretty good shape to finish up everything by material-wise by the end of Thursday, and then just attack the final exam on Friday morning. If that sounds like a reasonable approach, could you give me a green thumbs up? Okay. And my gut feeling is, and Mark just brought this up to me, where we are now, even with this trying to get everything into material into 4 days, I think we still might be able to get out a little early on some of the days, including today. I noticed the sudden wave of enthusiasm when I mentioned that this is the second to the last break before I realized there's 3 more breaks before 5 o'clock. So I'm going to embrace that enthusiasm. We'll see if we can't get out of here maybe an hour early today. So we'll take 1 more break in an hour, and then we'll finish sometime before 4 o'clock. So those of you who commute to work, you'll get a good jump on traffic. Those of you from working from home, you'll get a good jump into whatever your plans are for the evening, and we'll stick with that. So if you have a different plan or different idea, turn on your microphone and let me know. Otherwise, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I waved in applause.
Okay, applause. I like that. I've only been teaching for about 13, 14 years since I retired from industry. And I have yet to have a student complain about getting out of class early. So I think that's probably a non-event. So thank you for the applause. But we'll keep rolling forward. Let's talk about this next lesson. This is lesson 3. It's the last lesson, I believe, in this module. It has to do with amendment to the solicitation. We're going to talk about circumstances that may need to lead to amending a solicitation. And we have another breakout exercise that deals with that. But it's very possible that requirements change. We issue a solicitation and all of a sudden something's changed. And so you have to amend in order to accommodate the change prior to making an evaluation and awarding a contract. That change, it can be initiated by the government, or it can be initiated sometimes, not as frequently, but sometimes by the bidders. So the FAA may initiate changes to accommodate changes in funding or mission, quantity, revisions to requirements documents, changes in delivery schedule, evaluation factor revisions, or even changes in date, time, or place for receipt of offers could require an amendment. If a solicitation is to be amended, the CO has to decide whether it also justifies extending the closing date, the amount of time that the bidders have to submit their offers. You need to allow time for amending and distributing the solicitation, the revised solicitation, and then for prospective offers to make their changes to their proposals or bids and get that stuff back in there. But that's up to the CO to decide if that additional time is required. Your participant guide states that the CO should use standard form SF30, which is amendment of solicitation or modification of contract, to prepare and issue an amendment. I found the FAA, we use form 4400-34. Is anybody familiar with that here? That's just what I found surfing around fast.faa.gov. Could somebody comment on that? Do you use SF30, or do you know if you use form 4400-34? I think SF30, for those of you from DoD, is a FAR document. Anybody know?
Yeah, I'm. This is Nicole, and I have experience from DoD using the SF forms. The second form you mentioned does not sound familiar with me. And granted, I've been with the FAA for only 2 months, so I haven't worked on a competition here.
Okay. 2 months worth. So you haven't submitted an amendment or modification to a solicitation in your 2 months. Okay, we'll give you a couple more weeks.
No one lets me do that here yet. Yeah.
Okay. I believe it's form 4400-34. But again, I've not been involved on that side of it, but I just want to correct what was written in your student manual. So
I gotta say, Jim, I think you're giving Nicole too much time. She's been here long enough and should have till Friday. Just kidding, Nicole. You just sound that good and that's solid.
Well, look, if Nicole keeps hitting home runs with her group, she's going to run the score up on everybody. So it's a good thing she's only been here 2 months. Otherwise, she'd have to take a break so the rest of us could catch up.
Listen, acquisition is a team sport. We're all in it together.
Good answer. All right. So the following information is included in the modification. Of course, the issuing agency, the issuing activity, name and address of who's issuing it. Solicitation number is always required. Amendment number of pages, description of the changes rather, a point of contact, and closing date. And that brings us to another breakout session. This is an exercise. It's a scenario including actions that occurred after the scenario. And what I need you to do is take a look at this and decide. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The numbering is a little odd, but it's asking which actions occurred would require an amendment to the solicitation. And so for each action, decide if it would require amendment or could the action be handled some other way other than amendment. And then prepare your answers for discussion in the group. I'm going to put you in your breakout group. It says 40 minutes. I can't believe you need 40 minutes to do this. So tell you what, I'm going to put you in your breakout groups for 30 minutes. This is on page 154 of your participant guide, and it's on page 32 of the workbook. So write the notes, answers in the notes section of the breakout room, and we'll discuss them when we get back after 30 minutes. Are there any questions before I put you back into your breakout groups? Okay, the instructions are in. I'm going to change it from 40 minutes to 30. And I'm going to start your breakout groups right now. Okay, guys, let's see. Let's talk about there are 8 different events that occur after the scenario, describing the integrated logistics support. 8 different events. We've got 4 groups. Let's just take it this way. I'll start backwards this time with group 4. And we'll do events 1 through 8, and I'll ask you how you deal with it. So I'll start with group 4. After the solicitation went out, the source evaluation team decided to hold a pre-proposal conference scheduled for March 27th of 2020. How would you deal with that? Would that be an amendment to your solicitation or some other way?
All right, this is Team 4, Anthony speaking.
Hey, Anthony.
Yes, the date was changed, so it would be done in an amendment to change the schedule.
Okay. That's actually when I read it's like one of the top 5 reasons for amending a solicitation is
Right.
scheduling a
Schedule.
proposal.
And we kind of put the reason, we saw them as amendments, and we would put the reason beside it why we amended. So for the first one, it's amendment, of course, and the reason for the amendment is because of the schedule change. If you can follow what we did.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Is there any other way to handle this? Scheduling a pre-proposal conference? Is there any way? Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step over. Yeah, it's happened before. Like if there was one contractor couldn't make it, or somebody couldn't make it, but you'd have to do it within. It used to be 12 hours. Now it's 24 hours. If it changed, you can do it as close as up to 8 hours to give them time to reset their schedule to for the proposal conference. But you have to notify everybody, because even if you already picked the either contractor or contractors, if it's a schedule thing and it's the proposal conference, everyone has to be involved.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. If I can add to that, you sometimes run into a case where it's too late for you to put it in any sort of SAMs or announcement. We made phone calls. I remember we had a project in Denver, and because of the weather, certain people that were scheduled to be at the walkthrough, their flights were delayed or canceled. So we had to make sure we had contact information and contact them actually on their cell phones to let them know that we were giving them a day reprieve. We were rescheduling for the next day, trying to give everybody a chance to get into Denver.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's happened.
Real life sometimes hits you.
Yeah. Life is all around us. Do you notice the scenario described beta.sam.gov? Of course, that it's no longer in a beta version. But let's go on to event 2. The 4 typos were identified in the performance work statement. Let's go to Frank Burns Group 3. How would you handle this? Would this rise to the level of an amendment?
We put that it wasn't an amendment, that you can just email all parties involved. Be advised, my is not my and it's may, as opposed to killing 100 trees trying to reprint everything for a couple of typos.
Yeah, I would imagine most of the time they could probably just see it from context. But you do have to take a critical look to see, could it possibly lead to confusion?
True.
All right. Did somebody, Anthony, did you raise your hand, or Joshua?
Joshua here.
Okay.
So in our group, we were thinking that it would require an amendment, because if it's, air traffic control or anything like that, if they're they have a typo for my and may, may is a pretty serious word for them. So we figured it was going to need an amendment to correct it.
Yeah. Either way, again, it's hard to know unless you can really read the context. And as a CEO, you'd have to take a hard look at the context to see if it could be interpreted in a way that caused confusion. It might require an amendment.
Well, see, just to follow up on that. So, the changes necessitating an amendment, this is what I use for the parameters. It is 1, quantity, 2, requirements, 3, elevation factors, and this is in the guide too, proposal instructions, need, and schedule. So all these technically meet those requirements, and just like I believe the gentleman just spoke. So for FAA and dealing with NDPRE, so you're dealing with DOD, Army, Navy. I mean, you have a lot of. So it's easier, if it's just a simple project, a UPS, upsystem PCS again that you're putting out on a radar site, or a localizer, glide slope, putting a DC bus in. Those things you can do pretty simple, basic. You can get a hold of everybody. But on these big national contracts and so forth, these things will require more time. So it's easier to amend it. And then you don't get people pushing fingers back and forth that didn't have an opportunity.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. That's good guide. That's a very good guidance. Okay. Let's roll on number 3 and go to group 2. The due date for the questions has been extended to April 9th. Does this rise to the level of an amendment?
So we said no, but kind of assuming, the due date for questions was included in the SAM.gov posting. So depending on if that statement was also included in the SIR, we may need one. But if it was just posted in the SAM.gov posting, no amendment to the SIR would be needed. We would just amend the SAM.gov information.
Okay, that makes sense. This is also interesting. One of the top 5 reasons why solicitations end up getting amended is a change in due date for questions. Okay, good answer. Let's go on to group 1 and talk about event number 4. Customer with the requirement for ILS services determined that 10 sites are not enough. They want to add 5 more sites.
Amendment is needed. Yeah, this is major. So definitely an amendment for this one.
Yeah, no, not a lot of discussion. I mean, that goes kind of the core of what this solicitation is all about. Okay, good answer. Good answer. Number 5, we'll go back to group 4. The contract writing system produced an extra blank page in the solicitation document. There are actually 91 pages instead of 92. Does that require an amendment? Or how would you deal with that?
We had a long discussion on that because I said it's hard to amend just because a page is blank. You could even just contact the people,
right?
Email them, call them, let them know that there's a excessive page, one excessive page,
yeah, one blank page,
and just a disregard.
Now again, I've had this happen where on a engineer sends out a set of plans and a scope of work, and it's 23 pages and page 13 is missing, not 92. So that opens up a whole bag of worms because you're missing information and scope of work or whatever. But
yeah, I would tend to agree. If there's an extra page and it's 92 instead of 91, and it's blank, I think it's pretty clear that there's and again, a clarifying email would allay any concerns on the part of the vendors. I think that's pretty easy to get around and not amending. Let's go. What about group 3? Let's take number 6. The industry code, the NAICS code used when posting the solicitation was correct, but the title of that code was incorrect. Would that rise to the level of an amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. In a word. Why is that?
Because it's a code that people either know the code or they don't know the code. So if somebody's quoting such and such code and people go, oh yeah, that's it. It's not. It's the wrong one. If you're working with electrical, something hazardous.
Yeah.
So it needs to be correct, clear, so everybody's on the same sheet of music.
Yeah. The way forms autofill, I think it'd be very difficult to get the code number right and still get the title wrong. But it might, sort of the issue is, did the proposal go to the right groups? Did the proposal go to the right vendors? If the title was wrong, the NAICS code was correct. So it's worth taking a look at. And yeah, it's pretty major. You're talking about who your bidders are, whether you're going to get the right people or not. It might be worth an amendment.
This is Josh here out of group 2. I think in our group, we were talking as well that it could become a legal issue too if there was a little bit of confusion there.
Yeah, if somebody didn't get a chance to, or didn't win, or they didn't pay attention to it and didn't bid, you might get a claim, causing you to reissue the solicitation.
Or a good old protest.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, good point. Thanks, Joshua. Which brings me to your group 2. Let's talk about number 7. The due date for proposals has been extended to Friday, April the 20th. Is that the need for an amendment?
Our response was kind of along the same lines as the other question we had. The SAM.gov posting, we said when the proposals were due, not sure if that's included in the SIR or just the posting on SAM.gov. So if it's just the posting, then no amendment would be needed. But we could also send an email out.
Yeah, it's a very, I think, important distinction that you make. And this is the first time that somebody's brought this up. I've only taught this class a couple of times, but it's important to realize is if it's in the text of the SIR, it might require an amendment. But if it's just in a field in SAM.gov, it might be very, very easy to fix, and with a follow-up email telling everybody what happened or what you changed. Okay.
Excuse me, Jim.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Anthony. But we consider it still even in SAM.gov, when you're making changes like that, we do tell people refer to the amendment in the announcement, especially if you're changing a date like that. You want to make sure everybody sees it. So when you put it in SAM.gov, it's just like doing an amendment to the solicitation. We consider that being an amendment.
Okay, so it's still listed as an amendment. Okay, good. Anthony, thank you. Let's do the last one. We're going to turn to group 1. And there was an error in the page numbers in one of the attachments. Group 1, how are you going to handle that one?
I mean, you could do an amendment. But you can easily just, if you post on sam.gov, you can say, please note, attachment J1 has 25 pages instead of 26 pages or something to that effect. But you could do an amendment and it wouldn't hurt you. But I think you could probably also handle that with just like an announcement to the on sam.gov, just noting that update to the page numbers.
Okay, very good. All right, good discussion. We are at the end of Module 4. And we're also at the top of the hour. It's 3:00 Eastern. And like our revised schedule said, this is going to be the last break of the day. So we come back. Let's slice a little bit into Module 5 and see how far we get before we call it a day. So I'm going to put you back in the lobby for 10 minutes. Thanks for the discussion, and I'll see you after 10 minutes. Okay, we are back from our last break of the day. Brad, you got your thumbs up. Christian, you got your thumbs up. Billy, you got your thumbs up. Why don't you give me a green thumbs up, you guys? Let me know we're good after our last break of the day. Okay, good news is nobody's going to grow old in this class today. But we are going to talk a little bit about Module 5 evaluation. The whole purpose of the proposal evaluation is to assess the content of the proposals using the evaluation factors that we came up with and determine whether a prospective offer can perform the contract successfully. So the learning objectives in this module, there are 3 of them. Review the pre-evaluation activities evaluate proposals, and prepare the source evaluation team evaluation report. So lesson 1, pre-evaluation activities. We're going to talk about preparing the source selection team to conduct the evaluation. So you have to ensure that each member first, and this is it kind of goes beyond saying, has read the requirements document. They have to know what it is that we're soliciting bids for, what it is we're doing the source selection for. So make sure they read the requirements document, that they're familiar with the acquisition strategy, the source selection strategy, and the solicitation itself. The CO and FAA Legal should conduct a briefing with the source evaluation team members and go over the process of source selection and the procedures that we're going to use to evaluate the various proposals. The methods for instructing can include a letter of instruction from the CO, a standard booklet or pamphlet in doing source evaluations, a detailed briefing by the CO and legal, and of course the source evaluation plan itself. So the components of the source evaluation plan include a statement of all the responsibilities of the source evaluation team, explanation of any restrictions on obtaining and disclosing information, especially keeping proprietary information proprietary and confidential, guidelines for evaluating proposals, including any worksheets or forms that they plan on using as a team, a statement that the proposals must be evaluated only against the evaluation factors and not against each other, a requirement for the evaluators to factually support and document their determinations and conclusions, and finally, a discussion of the milestone schedule for the source evaluation team activities. Let's see how we're going to do this. This is another breakout room exercise. This will probably be the last thing we do today. I'm going to place you in your breakout rooms for 30 minutes. This exercise is on page 164 and 165 of your participant guide. I'm going to flip to that page. So I'm going to put you in your groups for 30 minutes. It's got a scenario and then a brief standard operating procedure that goes with it for safeguarding documents during proposal evaluation. And this is also in your workbook on page 36 and 37.
36, 37.
Yes, 36 and 37 of the workbook, 164 and 165 of the participant guide. Now you've got something else you need to look at. There's a handout. Let me find the reference. Yes, okay. There's an FHWA training course solicitation handout. Now, if you look at the course material, one of the things I asked you to download was number 3, source selection handout. We haven't referred to that yet, but this will be the first exercise, and you have to move to page 23 in the handout. This is PDF page 23, not numbered page 23. It's entitled FHWA Training Course Solicitation, and it's a fictitious solicitation document for a training course. So you need to look at the the scenario in the participant guide or on the workbook, the standard operating procedures for safeguarding documents, and the training course. And I want you as a team, review those 3 documents and prepare a brief outline, not more than about 10 minutes, for the source evaluation team. In other words, you're going to give a briefing to the source evaluation team on how they're going to conduct the evaluation. Write your briefing outline in the notes section of the breakout room. You're going to, I'll probably only ask a couple groups to actually present their briefing, assign a spokesperson to give this very brief briefing. And that's it. Are there any questions on that before I put you into your breakout groups?
Is this intended to be like a kickoff?
It's like a kickoff meeting, but what we're going to do is you're going to give instructions to the source evaluation team on how they're to conduct their source evaluation. So all the things that we talked about just a couple slides ago, they go with the instructions to the source evaluation team. So the responsibilities, the explanation of the restrictions, guidelines for how we're going to conduct this evaluation. This is back, if you look at the slides, it was back a couple slides on slide 154. Here, I'll go back. This slide talks about all the things that is included in the instructions to the source evaluation team.
So tailor our brief along with these.
That's correct.
Components.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Now this outline is also in your student. This components of the instructions for the source evaluation team. It is also in your student guide. It's on page 162 in your student guide. So I want you to prepare just write an outline in the notes section, and it for a less than 10-minute briefing, trying to tell the members of the source evaluation team on how they're conduct their evaluation. Are there any questions? Okay, you've got 30 minutes. Like I said, this is the last thing we're going to do today. And I'll put you in your breakout for 30 minutes. And afterwards, we'll see what we come up with on quick instructions to evaluators. Okay, guys, welcome back to the main room. I'm going to mute everybody and turn mine back on. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to randomly select one of four. Everybody has a good outline. Everybody's focus is a little different. Some are more prose, some are more outline in their approach. Some are systematic, some are hitting the high points. But we're going to randomly pick one group. You could be the winner group for this opportunity. One group is going to act as the instructor. So they're going to instruct the other three groups in how to prepare for and conduct this source evaluation. So you're giving instructions to a source evaluation team. And at the end, the other three groups have an opportunity to ask questions or provide feedback. Do you understand the rules? Anybody have any questions? Well, the logical question should be, well, how are we going to randomly select somebody to do this? And the answer is, we get the random spin wheel.
The randomizer.
The randomizer for groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here we go.
Come on, 7.
There he is. Group 4 is the absolute winner. So Group 4, congratulations.
I'm a bet man. I knew that was going to happen.
I did not have my finger on the wheel.
Yeah. Finger on the pulse.
Okay, Group 4, you knew it was coming your way. You get an opportunity to instruct the other 3 groups. The other 3 groups, you are been selected as part of a source evaluation team for the FAA, or I guess this is actually for the DOT. And we're going to put together a course for bridge design. And so let's listen to the instructions. Group 4, the stage is yours. Do you need to share a screen or anything?
I've been having problems trying to get mine. Anthony, you on there? I know we stepped off for a minute to get a drink. We were both having problems.
No, I'm oh shoot.
I'm here. How can I help? Group 4.
All right. So the scenario, everybody knows what the scenario is, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just gonna let me go back here. So everybody understands the SOP for this project. Is that a yes? No?
Yes.
Thumbs up?
I mean,
I'm talking about groups 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're getting green thumbs up, so it sounds like they understand the SOP.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out how to word the 10. Conduct 10 regional pilot training courses and revise course material and course schedules, and conduct up to 50 presentations of the regular course for solicitation. And then the other thing we have to address is the highway engineers are not sufficiently familiar with the application of the LRFRD during routine bridge inspections. So, to the group, first thing we would do is we have all our people in place, the CO, contracting officer, all the parties in place. So we would have to go out and do a sole source and possibly a bridge day. Everybody agree?
You guys, groups 1, 2, and 3, you're welcome to make comments.
Yeah, you mean like a field trip to the bridges?
Yeah, no. I mean, a bridge day would basically be like we would go to vendors and so forth, and federal highway, talk to those folks.
Okay.
Okay.
The purpose being background information.
Background information, see what they can actually, do the SOP. It's already stated that there's got to be their engineers aren't fully qualified and don't understand, so we have to bridge that gap because we're working, for them. So whoever would take that part of the team, it could be one of you guys could be a SME or so forth or so on, or have a background in bridges and construction. Then we would have to go out and solicit offers and proposals.
Good.
And then I would ask from everybody involved in the evaluation to overlook those proposals, look through those proposals, see if we're missing anything from the SOP so we can dot our I's and cross our T's and alleviate anybody that doesn't fully understand the scope of work. And we'll divulge and discuss any more content that we need outside of the workspace. The other thing, as a contracting officer, I would also cover evaluate the technical management proposal of it. So I would need somebody that's very technical and understand. Let me look back here into the scope. Sorry, back and forth. The course material that we would need to provide for the pilot training courses and revised course material for the curriculum.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
And at the end, we would put together a pilot presentation just for all of those people in our group who have signed the NDAs to go through it to make sure all the content has been covered. So we can input anything that we might have missed from, our experienced engineers and so forth.
Yeah, and we would, before we would do that, we put out a solicitation of interest through SAM and see what we get back from that, and then we would go ahead and work out and do the adherence and do a written proposal and send that out, and then we would do what you say, a disclosure. Did that cut you off, Anthony?
No, you're good. I'm trying to
pull back
my other screen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's slow. Other than that, we had a questions and answers kind of deal. We would put everything together and send it out for solicitation. Do our worksheet, make sure we cross our I's and dot our T's.
Okay.
And then we would just wait whoever came in for bids or proposal. We go through, check past performance, quality, research, good rating,
technical valve and the ratings.
Contractor.
And we already would decide as a group if we would have adjectival or numeric scoring.
Correct.
Well, I've got a question as part of the source evaluation team. My cousin on my father's side is a structural engineer. Works for Parsons, and he wants to know if is it okay if I just talk to him? I mean, we're going to have dinner tomorrow night. Can I share a little bit about?
Well, no, you already signed a non-disclosure agreement. No,
yeah, it's not already a sole source for you. So,
isn't your name on this NDA? Hey Jim, your name is on the NDA. That's no.
Yeah.
No. Okay. I noticed you guys started with the sole source. So you
but if you could go ahead and invite us out to a golf tournament at the country club and whatever, you can have a conversation.
Because of the urgency of it, Jim, is why we went. We thought we could go sole source because it was urgent.
Yeah.
So instead of going through the whole runs of putting out all this stuff and having different companies come in, we thought there had to be an adequate source out there where we could sole source with the experience in this nature and expedite everything instead of going through 3-4 more firms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, it sounds like the focus then shifts to making sure that it's adequate, that we have confidence in their ability to perform, and that we're getting a fair and reasonable price. Rather than that's the focus of the instructions to the evaluation team. It's not so much we're going to sequester you in a room and you've got these forms to fill out and you apply the evaluation criteria. It's a very different focus. Evaluating a sole source than evaluating a competitive bid. But still, good instructions, makes sense, especially for a sole source bid. let me put this out there, seeing as it's 5 minutes after 4 now. Does anybody else have a compelling reason that they want to do their presentation instructions to source evaluation team, or do you guys want to call it a day and see you again tomorrow?
I think they win the contract.
they win the contract.
All right, boys, we're going to the boys and gals. We're going to the country club.
Okay. I think we're in good shape. Then we're done for the day, man. This is so much fun today. Why don't we do this again tomorrow?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, we'll meet here tomorrow, 9:00 Eastern, and we'll pick up where we left off. We're going to start talking about the receiving and screening proposals when we get back tomorrow. Mark, is there anything I missed? Anything I need to talk about before we get out of here?
Sir, I believe you're in good shape.
Okay, we're in good shape. You guys, thanks for a good day, and I enjoy the humor. It means a lot. Have a nice evening. See you tomorrow, 9:00. Same bat time, same bat channel.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that's sweet.
I wonder if I think it was Showman that had the child that was ill.
Oh, was ill? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I hope they're doing better. Yeah, she had to go home. Take care of an ill child.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Joshua's still online because it's still early morning in
You can't get enough.
Juneau,
Yeah, it
Alaska.
feels like my day just started. I guess I should go home.
I know what am I going to do the rest of the day?
Got to approve some E2s. Got to get into Prism. Do all my other stuff.
There you go.
It's fun.
Yeah. Thanks for the class today. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow, Joshua. Early morning your time.
Oh yeah.
All right. Good night. Anthony, got anything else going on?
No, sir. Just trying to get out.
Okay.
So
get out of here.
Screens open up. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night. All right, Mark, I think we're okay.
I just booted Anthony, if that's okay. Sounds like he was having some
fine.
trouble.
That's fine. I'm going to